Hello there everyone, I'm Christina of CSLdesigns and today I'm going to show you how to make these easy wire macrame bracelets, and these are the two that I've made here. So I made both of them with the exact same technique. I've just used different coloured beads to show you the different effect that you can get. But then they look like that, so you get a really nice effect and especially a big impact, obviously depending what materials that you choose to use. And this is then what they look like on. So you can see they give a really nice impact on the wrist there, but they're still comfortable to wear because even though it's wire that we're using, it's a bit of a finer gauge, it's a 0.6, so that means it's a little bit more flexible. Even though it's still strong and obviously holds its shape and all the knots and that, it's still kind of flexible, so it kind of just molds around your wrist nicely, which makes it nice and comfortable to wear. So if you want to learn how to make these bracelets here, then keep watching. So these are the materials that we're going to need. First of all, we need a wire. The wire that I'm using here is a regular round silver coated copper wire that's a 0.6 mil, and this is going to be used for the whole bracelet. And then I have two different sizes of beads to achieve the effect that we want. First of all, I have some 6mm rounds. These ones here are blue coated hematite, and they're also faceted to give a nice sparkle. And then I'm also using these 4mm rounds, so the smaller ones, and these are silver coated hematite. Obviously you can combine and choose whatever kind of beads that you want to. And then we also need some findings to finish off the ends with, so we can obviously use the bracelet. I'm using this lobster claw clasp and extender chain, and I'm just going to attach them using these jump rings here. So check out the description box below the video for the material list and any links as well. But otherwise, let's get all the materials ready and let's get started. So then the first thing we need to do here is cut some lengths of our wire. So first of all, I have two lengths of about 35 centimeters each of the 0.6 mil that we're using, and these are both going to be the holding wires. And then we need another two lengths as well, and these are about 70 centimeters each, and they are going to be the working wires. So I then took all my lengths of wire and attached them onto my mini macrame board, and I just put them into the same slot at the top, but then the two holding wires, they're also coming straight down and then into a slot there on the bottom, so straight opposite. But then the two working wires are in that same slot on the top, but then the rest of them are loose because obviously we need to use them to work with. And we don't need to leave too much of a tail on the back here because we only need to be able to make a wrap loop really. But I want to then just start out making a few square knots with my working wires here so we can get to the beaded part. So what I'm going to do is same way that we do it with cord, but obviously it's a little bit different working with the wire, but it's the same basic technique. So in this case I'm starting on my left side. It doesn't matter whether you start with the left or the right one as long as you stay consistent. But I'm taking my left wire over the two holding wires there, and then I take the right one, kind of get to the end here, and then bring it over the other one to then come underneath everything in the middle, including those two holding wires, and then to bring it up through that loop on the other side, and then bring it all the way through gently. So we can then grab the two lengths of wire and basically start pulling at them and bring it nice and tight, pretty much as far up as it'll go there, and just pull it as tight as you can get it. And then we start from the right side, bring that over, then the left one comes over that, underneath everything in the middle, and then up through the loop there, and this is then the other half of the knot. You see the same movements, we're just starting from the opposite side. And then I tighten this, so just pull the two wires apart from each other like this, nice and tight, and this is now one full complete square knot there. Now you just want to repeat this a few times until we have a short little length before we start adding beads in. Now I'm going to make about 4 knots in total, and then we're going to get to the beaded part. So I now made my knots here, and then what I want to do is add my beads on. So what I need to do first of all is release my holding wires from the bottom slot there, and then I'm just going to smooth them out just like this here, and kind of just separate them out a little bit as well. So I just pull them apart from each other. You're going to find you're going to have one more towards the left and more towards the right, and just keep them to those sides there because they should be lying flat next to each other through the knots. So then we need to add the beads. So it doesn't really matter how you start, but first I'm just going to take a 6mm here, add that onto one of them, and then we need to add a 4mm to the opposite one. So I've just got a 6mm on the left one and a 4mm on the right one. Again, doesn't matter, you can also do opposite. But then what we need to do is you might as well add all your beads now when you have these holding wires free. But the way that we need to add them is basically alternating. So now on the left one, I have my 6mm, then I add a 4mm, and then I add another 6mm, and then another 4 mil. And just keep letting them drop down for now. And of course do the same on the other one. So alternating them as well, but opposite. So that starts with a small one instead of a large one. And just keep adding however many beads that you need to use. So now I've added my beads here, then I just need to reattach my holding wires because obviously right now they're still loose. But what I'm going to do is just bring them close together so they sit next to each other there. You can kind of see all these beads are alternating off from each other. But then placing them back in the slots on the bottom, I'm actually going to separate them out now. So I'm going to put them into slots right next to each other instead of into the same one, just to help with the spacing there. Just bring the wires back underneath with the spacing, because the beads actually create a bit of space in themselves. And then once you've done that, you can just push your beads down to get them out of the way, so we have a free kind of working area up there. Push them as far down as they'll go, and then we just need to start with a few beads at a time. So make sure the first one on either side is pushed all the way up as far as they'll go, and make sure they're sitting next to each other just like this here. And then what we need to do now is actually just continue making knots, but obviously we're now just incorporating the beads into it as well. So I'm going to start from the same side, bring my left one over, and making sure those beads stay there. One on either side, so 2 in total at the top, and then the wire from the other side I'm going to bring over that. So just like we did the square knot before, underneath everything in the middle and up through the loop on the other side. And now as I'm pulling these tight, I'm just going to make sure that those beads stay there. So basically this knot now is going to cage in those beads so they can't move around. So we're making this knot right below, but then we have our wires coming around the sides of the beads there as well, caging them in nicely. So then what we're going to do now, instead of making full knots like we did previously, so making both sides to make one full square knot, then what we're going to do is just basically make half a knot at a time. So I just added those 2 beads there, one on either side, and then I made the first half of a knot. Then straight away I'm going to push up my next 2 beads, one on either side again, which are sitting opposite. And then we need to make the other half. So that means I have to start from the side that I would do if it was the other half of completing the knot. So in this case here, I'm then starting from the right side, bring that over, and then complete this half of the knot with the other side in the exact same way. And then we just tighten these up by pulling them all the way up, making sure then that those beads stay in place and they're sitting next to each other there. You can just kind of push them together if you need to, and pull this nice and tight. Make sure that these 2 holding wires don't get too close together, but the beads should create a nice spacing in the first place. You can see they're then caged in because of this other half of the knot, but we're just adding in the beads in between. Now I also just want to mention that I recommend doing as you're working with wire with macrame. You'll find as you're pulling your wire and moving it around like this here, that your wire is going to kind of go out of shape like this. So to avoid that and make sure it stays nice and malleable to work with and it's not going to break ideally, I always, once I've pulled my knot tight, I always run it through my hands and fingers to smooth it out basically, and then the wire is immediately ready for the next step, which would then be to push up the next beads, one on either side. You can see again they're sitting opposite to the previous ones, and then we start on the opposite side again and make one half of a knot, and then we just pull this tight, again making sure these beads stay in place and get caged in by pulling this knot tight. And you see again I run it through my fingers, and you just keep going like this, alternating, making sure every time you make a new knot or half of the knot you push up the next 2 beads, one on either side there, until you used up all the beads. So I've now kept going here and I've reached the length that I want. Now bear in mind as you're measuring this as you go that the clasp that you're going to use is also going to add some length as well. But then what we need to do is finish off this end basically the same way that we started out. So first of all I just want to take my 2 holding wires and reattach them into the same slot as each other and bring them back around the back here, just to bring them closer together again, because then what we need to do now is make knots around both of them just like we did in the beginning there, using the 2 working wires still. Now you just got to pay attention to how your working wire is finished off, So I can tell that this wire on the right is coming kind of downwards underneath the other one, whereas on the other side is coming upwards over the other one there. It's crossing underneath. So you want to make sure you start with the side where the wire is coming downwards. In this case, that's my right side. It could be the other side depending how you finished, so the length as well. So just pay attention to that. But then otherwise you just want to make some square knots here. Just like this, tighten this then. Nice and tight, so we bring those two holding wires close together again. And then we just want to make the same amount of square knots really as we have in the beginning. So I've now taken my length off the board here because I'm done making knots. So all that's left to do now really is finish off the ends. So on this end here, I'm just going to show you on the one because it's the same on both of them. We have the two holding wires and then we have two working wires kind of going out from to the sides from that very last knot. So first I'm just going to do the holding wires. I'm just going to take one of them here first of all and basically wrap that around the other one. So just do a few wraps here, nice and tight. About 3 times or so. And just make sure that the wraps are tight together. So if you need to, push them together using a pair of chain nose pliers or something. So something like this here. And then what we need to do is cut off the excess. So I'll take my flush cutters and then just go in. Just get it all the way around there. And then cut off the excess. And then make sure, once you cut that off, you're going to be able to feel a little bit of the end of the wire sticking out. So make sure you squeeze that down using your chain nose pliers, because you don't want that to scratch on your skin or anything. Just kind of tuck that away. And then what I'm going to do with the other wire is actually make a wrap loop, but I kind of just want to get rid of the other two first of all so they're not too much in my way. So like I said, they are coming out from that last knot towards the sides. So you're going to find one is more coming towards one side and one is more coming towards the other side, so kind of towards the front and the back there. So what you want to do, this one is coming towards the front of this piece right now. So I'm going to bring it over the top of the knot towards the opposite side. And just flip it around and do the same thing with the other one. Bring it over the top of the knot towards the opposite side, like that. And then I'm going to go in and cut off the excess, but make sure there's a short little end of the wire from that point where it's coming out from and crossing over to the other side. Something a bit like that. And just do the same with the other one, cut that off as well. Now don't worry about it coming undone because it is wire, so it's not going to just unravel or anything. Cut that off, and then what we just need to do is tuck the ends away, because again, if you put your finger over it, you can feel it kind of sticking out right now. You can see it there. So what I'm going to do is take my chain nose, and then the reason that we left that short little end is so we can grab onto the end of the wire with the chain nose and then flick it inwards towards the knot before I then push it down so it nestles back into the knot, but the very end kind of gets tucked away inside the knot. And the same with the other side. Just grab that very end of the wire and then just flick it inwards towards the knot with your wrist before we then just push it down. And then make sure you feel it with your finger there. If you can't feel anything scratchy, then it's fine. If you can, you just want to kind of push it in a little bit more. But then, like I said, we need to make a wrap loop with that very final wire up here. So to do that, first of all, I'm grabbing my chain nose pliers again, because we need to make a bend first of all. So put it kind of towards the side here, and then grab the wire just a little bit above where those wraps are, so we have a bit of bare wire showing. And then I make my bend, just like that, just so you have a couple of millimeters between the wraps and that bend. Then I take my 6-step bell making pliers. You can use round nose pliers. I just like using these because I know exactly what size loop I'm going to get if I use a certain step, and I can use the same step on both ends, so I know they become the same size. But then I place that just after that bend, and then I bring the tail all the way around. So we end up getting a full circle like that. And then I use my chain nose pliers to grab onto that circle there so it stays in shape, and then we need to use the rest of this little tail and wrap around the wire, the kind of bare wire that's between the loop that we just made and the other wraps there, and basically fill in that little space until you don't have any more space to wrap around. And then all we need to do is go in and cut off the excess. So again, use your flush cutters, cut that off, and then just make sure that we tuck away that very end, because you can kind of see it and also feel it definitely sticking out. So tuck it away to make sure it doesn't catch or scratch on anything. Just press it down nicely. And then we have our wrap loop here, and then this loop is ready to have whatever kind of findings that you want to use attached to it, so obviously a clasp. So you want to finish the other end off in exactly the same way as well, and then we just got to shape it and obviously attach our clasp as well. So now I've finished off both ends here and I've attached my clasp as well and extended chain. Then all I have to do is shape it. So you can either kind of push this around something that has the size and shape you want your bracelet to have, or you can just use your fingers. So what I just do is go into one place here and start putting a gradual curve into it, and then going from side to side. So you don't want to go into one place and just do a big bend. You want to gradually give it a curve from side to side here, and basically end up bringing the two ends together, so obviously we can use the clasp as well. And when you then finish shaping it here, then we can just use the clasp. It's going to secure it nicely while wearing it, but then it's completely ready to wear, and it's finished like this. So this is what it looks like. So these are the two bracelets that I made here. So the exact same basic technique, but just different colorways, just to show you how they can look quite different depending on what materials that you choose to use. And obviously you can also choose a different color wire, that's completely up to you. But then this is what mine looked like. So a pretty simple and easy tutorial for how to make these wire macrame bracelets, but they still give quite a big impact because of the beads and obviously how you can combine the beads as well. So I really hope you enjoyed this. Now if you like wire macrame, I have other tutorials, so I'm going to have a playlist where actually I collect all my wire macrame tutorials in that, so feel free to check that out. You're going to find that in the description box below. But otherwise, thank you so much for watching this one, and I'll see you in the next one.